Sunday the 7th. All 5 parks. I told her like it's so experience for kids. They're gonna see it. Make sure that you go in the morning, take a break, go back to the hotel, and do not try to do something for Sunday.
No, this is road behind you, but Eric.
Yeah.
I can still have this Sunday because my wife and I, we shop for a day.
Okay.
Lose for about 7 rides.
It's just like self-like even. Good evening, everyone. The Lapeer Community School Board of Education meeting is now called to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Novak, would you please lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Novak. So I know this item is not on our agenda tonight, but what the board would like to do this evening is to recognize a special group of individuals that have spent countless hours helping this community pass the most important thing for our kiddos in this school district. So I would like the Say Yes for Lapeer Community School Kids Committee to come up here, up in front of our Lapeer sign for us.
You thought you were just going to sit in the audience.
I can move up in one last time.
So we want to present
Oh my
them with a certificate of recognition. We truly appreciate every single thing that you did for us, for this community, for our kids. I mean, we really needed this, and all of your guys' long hours, all of your creative ideas. We couldn't have done it without you guys.
Oh, thank you. We're very happy to do it, so.
You have one more.
I'm just trying to stay at people.
Does that mean I have to go to the band concert now?
You
Yeah.
can. You can go to the band concert.
The rest of us will stay for the audience.
Yes,
Well, we appreciate it.
well, you should.
Okay, we will now head into the presenting school this evening, so I'll turn over to you, Superintendent Warren.
Thank you, Madam President. It's my pleasure to introduce Anita Lawrence, the principal of Lynch Elementary, to present this evening on Goal 2-1A.
I want to start by saying thank you very much. We truly appreciate every moment that you put into it. We know that you put a lot. So thank you very much. This year, Lynch chose benchmark 2-1A, which is focused on the essentials in instructional practices.
You're in charge.
We grant special permission.
Our building growth goals are essential 4, phonological awareness, essential 6, writing, and math essential 7, which relates to story problems. Our essentials were identified during our mini instructional rounds by our staff. As a group, it was decided that differentiation within our Tier 1 instruction is essential for student success. We brainstormed ideas and dug into our curriculum on how to differentiate across curriculums. We looked at our NWA data in reading and math and felt that our students were showing progress in these areas. But when we looked at our writing data and noticed it wasn't showing the same significant amount of growth, after looking at all of our data points, it was very evident that writing was an area we need with our building and with our students. As a group, we discussed what we could do to improve writing grade 5 and Tier 1 instruction. I had to bring our writing report back into a third share, so we have some data for our writing report. We're utilizing it and have been since the beginning of the year, and we've had 26 writing looks this year from our staff. They've had 26 times so far, 13 focusing on writing, 5 focusing on math, and 8 focusing on reading. In all 26 situations, they're used to support coaching cycles and have been evident in classroom observations. We're using equity resources and differentiating in order to reach every student at every level. In addition, Lynch is working towards using a common language and common structure starting from kindergarten to 5th grade. As a group, we work on how to approach writing with a differentiated mindset. To explain that process, I would like to introduce to you Jennifer Perry, Jen Parker, and Christy Chapin. They're going to talk to you about how they're taking their curriculum and using structure to strengthen.
All right, so after analyzing our writing prompts during our PLC, we noticed several things. The first thing that we noticed that many students were unable to analyze the prompt and determine who or what they were going to be writing about. Many students had their writing unorganized, and many students were writing without punctuation, which included capitalization and punctuation. With this information, we decided to do a data cycle on expository writing. This structure lent itself easily to differentiation within the classroom, but also helped us as teachers with the form to instruct writing. After we implemented this structure within our own classrooms first, we then brought it to the rest of the school through our PD. We made sure everyone went through the process and then we had a common language, and that's the most important thing to do. This common language and structure will be used throughout the building, K through 12. We also discussed exceeding expectations per grade level. So incoming, we know what to expect from incoming kids. We would now like to take you through what we did with our students and our staff, and share some student testimonies.
All right, so our first step in this process was to analyze a prompt. So we gave the prompt to the students to write about 3 chores that they dislike doing and explain why they dislike them. Our first step was to begin discussing the prompt. Students had the opportunity to turn and talk with their peers, share their ideas about what the prompt was asking them to do. This was helpful for students who were unsure about what the prompt was. And then once we identified the prompt and what it was asking us to do, this became our topic. And then we determined our audience, and we pulled out the keywords from the prompt that we would need to use to include in our response. And then we recorded those on our answer. After that, we began to brainstorm. So we used a web like this, and we brainstormed chores that we disliked doing. We started by doing a shared modeling list by first putting the topic in the center of the web, and then generating our ideas of the chores that we dislike doing in our own life and recorded them in the web. Students were then able to use best practices and some of the tagging structures that we've learned to share their thinking and generate their own ideas. The students who struggled with generating ideas were able to have the opportunity to use the lookboards in our own webs, as well as doing think their shares with their partners to help generate their own ideas. And then students then chose those 3 chores that they would like to use to respond to the prompt.
Okay, our next step was we took our 3 choices and we made a plan. We color-coded our plan sheet, so the topic and conclusion were green, like a stoplight, and then the big ideas were yellow, and tell me more were red, so we would tell them stop, tell me more, would be the details. The reason for this color-coded plan was because it helped students get a visual way to help with their writing, and it allowed access to all learning styles, and it also allowed an entry point to expository writing for the advanced and struggling writers. The 3 ideas they circled in a web became the 3 big ideas. And then tell me more with the details. And the reason why we came up or we used this plan was because their tell me more were not matching the big ideas, and it was all out of order. They were off topic. So to help them with their details, we used the 5 E's of writing, which are experience, explain, example, evidence, and expert, to come up with more details for the big ideas. And then to differentiate their writing, some students just had a topic and a conclusion with 3 big ideas. And then some had a topic and conclusion with 3 big ideas and only 1 tell me more, and then the rest did the whole paper. And then our next step was to generate a topic sentence. So we used the core 4 topic sentences, and we introduced them what a declarative statement was, a number statement, a question, and a situation stance, and then they were able to choose it when they wanted to use it for their essay.
All right, so using our native plan sheet, we began drafting our papers to differentiate the writing process, and we wanted to put some scaffolds in place. We wanted our scaffolds to be tactile and visual. So these colors, these strips, match kind of like our stoplight. So the first thing we did is we cut these strips, which was actually a lot of fun. And so they hold up a strip, right, the green piece, and then they're going to touch their little green topic, and they're going to plan it out. So they first have to plan it out across the strip, across their fingers, share it with their partner, and then they write it down, and then they do the 1, 2, 3 check. The 1, 2, 3 check is, does it have a capital letter, it doesn't have a punctuation mark, and most importantly, does it make sense? Checking it for a run. After this was also amazing because then they had to organize their writing and make sure that their reds match their big ideas, which we know as educators, that's really hard to do. And when they're in an envelope and they have to pull them out and sort them again, it's pretty amazing to see how many kids really can't do that. So that was a great thing to do. Our second organizer that we did was this. And this was another scaffold we implemented. So again, we had them highlight green, yellow, red, yellow. And then they could go back to their stoplight. They'd have to touch their make a plan sheet and then come back here. And we also added in transitions. We talked about varying your sentences, varying your transitions, embedding, and varying your transitions within your sentence. So there's a lot of teaching that went into this, and we talked about complex and compound sentences and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of kids really like this, and then we scaffolded this even more when we had some kids just had green and 3 yellows and a green. So the really lower students would have 5 sentences to write, and then go up from there. And then the last quick scaffold we put in place for the students, and actually all students, but was any polar part beforehand. was our 5-paragraph essays. But then they would go back to their highlighters, and this was the biggest aha moment for us, was when they'd have to match the colors with their makeup plan sheet and make sure they had all the pieces and that they were in the order. And what was so amazing for us was that even our lowest and struggling readers, since they knew that color system so well, they could help each other out because, oh no, we don't have a red here. And we had this huge conversation about this was like, well, you never know how to curate, right? You give them a silly check sheet and this and that, you go through and you're like, oh boy. But this holds them accountable because then they're going through, yeah, you have a topic sentence. Yes, you have the 1, 2, 3 check. Yes, you have a big idea with the transition. Yes, you this tell me more, it does match. We had some of our own struggling writers say, their big ideas in the wrong place, and then they'd be drawing errors. You know what I'm talking about. It was so awesome. Our next step as a staff is to get a school-wide writing prompt. And then we're going to pull the high, the mediums, and lows from each grade level. And then we're going to do a boundary walk. That way we can look at the learning throughout the building, and it will make when we discuss our notice themes and make our alignment more feasible. So now we'd like to show you the impact it's had on our students.
I feel better about writing this year because I feel like last year when I came into the class, I could only write about like 4 sentences per paragraph, but now I can write about 8 to 10 into each paragraph, and I can write 5 paragraph essays. Compared to last year, I think I'm doing better. Before, I wasn't very good at writing, but now I'm very confident at writing because I get a better point of view and I'm good at it now. I understand writing essay more because of analyzing my writings from last year and knowing what to add this year. I have been feeling more confident in writing when I sit down and finish writing the sheet. I think this plan is makes me concentrate when I'm writing because as soon as I'm done with it, I got straight into writing it and I was in action. This is my writing from the beginning of the year, and I had to draw pictures. And now I can draw a whole paragraph. I feel more confident in my writing because Miss Parker has tried to break apart the steps, and last year I only used to be able to write 5 paragraphs or less. Now I can write 5 paragraphs or more, and I'm really looking forward to becoming a better writer. My writing has changed a lot since 3rd grade, and that is how last year I could only write a little bit and also just 1 paragraph per day. But now I can write 5 paragraphs. This year I feel better at writing because I can know to explain more details about tiny words. This is how you build a sentence. You need a who and a what and a where. So, a cat can fly in the mountains.
I wanted to step up and say that when we started this school year out, the writing that we saw with the kids was, we were very concerned. We have third graders writing one sentence. We have fourth graders and fifth graders just writing letters across the page. And we sat down as a group and what do we do, how do we guide these kids and how they grow. And what we're seeing now is we're seeing kids write 2 pages, full paragraphs, where they're following the topic, they're not all over the place. And it's amazing the growth that we're doing so far. And as an entire staff, we're working together as a whole building to try to do something that's shown we're seeing. And these guys kind of took the lead and have done PDs with staff and quick shops and the lighting before we've gone into classrooms and modeled and just have really guided it. And our students are learning governance and the answers so much. If you guys have any questions.
Questions or comments? I love the lightning board. I'm loving that you guys are still using it. It's your DNA and your everyday practice. It's not just a lightning board. But I think the one individual student that said it just lets me take action. That's, I love those words. His confidence of, I'm gonna be a writer. That kid's gonna be a writer.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you guys. Appreciate that. Next on the agenda is public comment, but I don't see any comments for this evening. So we will head into our presentation. I will hand that over to you, Superintendent Laundrie.
Thank you, Madam President. Eric Fornberg from Plant Moran is here this evening to give the board our final audit presentation. So Eric, hand it over to your capable hands.
Very thoughts. Good evening. I want you to know that the last time that I was here was 3 years ago, and one of my last official acts as a partner in the firm was to put on this hat that you gave me at that meeting. So I can't resist the opportunity to return to my roots and to participate once again. Once again, my name is Eric Fornberg. I represent Plant Moran. I did retire from the firm, but I've been working with the firm quite extensively post-retirement. I'm here with Christy, who's in charge on the engagement. Lapeer has had what I call a year of some challenges and some transitions, and also some really, really good news. Back in February, I think it was, Danielle left for another opportunity, and that left a significant challenge in the business office. That challenge existed for a relatively long period of time until Erica came on board, I think around August, which meant that for that section of time that there was a lot of work that needed to be done and needed to be handled, the day-to-day work, plus the closing, plus the start of the next financial year. And so within the district, I know Mark worked really hard, our team worked really hard with Mark, and Erica worked tirelessly once she came on. Now, I do understand that she is on her honeymoon, a well-deserved one, I might add, given what everything that transpired. And we really just appreciated to come in after all that has occurred and to try and piece it all together. And to really kind of get your arms around it is a real challenge. And we really appreciated everything that she did in order to do that, and did it with a smile. On our side, we also had some transitional issues. I think many of you are aware that Donnie Hansen, who's the partner who handles this engagement, her husband had passed away unexpectedly and untimely about 2 months ago. And so Donna is just kind of slowly working back into her work cycle right now. Your thoughts and prayers for her, I think, would just be appreciated. That is attended the service, and I'm very close with Donna, and it's certainly been a challenge, but she's the optimistic person that she is something to behold. We also had some exciting news. Tiffany Stacy, who's the manager of this account, she worked up until the day before she delivered on Lapeer. That was her last assignment. She wanted to get that done, and so she worked. And then the next day, I got an email that said her baby boy was born. So, and that was about 6 weeks ago, and she is doing very well as well. So, there's a lot of things that occur. How does all that kind of shake out? Well, there's one other thing I also wanted to reference. In the middle of all that, your buyer's insurance. And I've had the pleasure of working with Lapeer for many years, and there have been many times where there were attempts, and we weren't able to say that at the end. And to see that you have those resources available to make those infrastructure investments that are so critical to advanced education is just really true. So, with that, what we'll do is we're going to go through the slide deck. We're going to use it down instead. That's better. We issued 3 reports in our package, and this slide kind of summarizes them. I'm going to talk about this, and then Christy will come in and begin to talk about some of the slides. The basic financial statements. The financial statements are the district's financial statements. The job of the auditor is to create a conclusion about it. The best conclusion we can have is something called an unmodified opinion. That's what you receive. One of the things that you will notice if you look at the reports, if you look at the document and compare it to last year, the format of the auditor's report is totally different. It doesn't say anything different, it's just formatted different. Now when you want to know the opinion, you literally go to the first paragraph, what a concept. And the opinion is there. And then everything that follows that talks about what the audit is and things that occurred and the things that we had to consider. And so we did get that unmodified opinion. Now we did have, as I indicated, there were a lot of challenges that occurred during the year. One of those, with the departure of Danielle, created some significant internal control challenges. That's not unexpected. When that occurred, we actually talked to the administrative folks about the fact that when you take out a key piece of the operation, the control system can't be as good as when that key piece of the operation was in place. And so you have what is called a material weakness relative to basically to that hole. And what I want to indicate is that hole has been, substantively repaired. So on a single audit, which is the audit of the federal grants, we do the same thing. We have to issue an opinion. Once again, you get an unmodified opinion, which is the A+. And the program that we looked at, no surprise, was the Education Stabilization Fund. For you, that's primarily the ESSER program. And we have some slides that talk about ESSER. ESSER is a big deal. It's a big deal financially, it's a big deal for its impact on the school district, and it's also a big deal as it relates to planning for the future. So we'll chat a little bit about that. We didn't have any findings or issues related to the federal grants. And then we'll issue a letter that kind of talks about, hey, what is our audit responsibility and what kinds of issues did we run into and did we have any? And if you go down the list here, we really didn't have any substantive issues. All that we had, we identified, in cooperation with the district, a lot of journal entries relative to close. The district posted all of those, so we don't have any issues associated with that. You did have one audit standard, accounting standard that was new, and that is GASB 87, and that dealt with leases. So we've always reported leases, and they were one or two kinds. They were either what we call an operating lease or a capital lease. And most of those leases were reported as operating leases, which you just record the activity as you make the payment. So if you have a copy of the lease or that kind of thing. This standard changed and said we don't have those two kind of leases anymore, we just have leases. And they create an asset and they create a liability, and we put it on the government-wide statements. That's what the impact of it is. While it doesn't sound like a huge deal, it is a little bit of a headache, and Mark worked really, really hard to try and dig up all those lease agreements so that we can figure out how to value them. On the statements. There will be a standard next year that is similar to leases that will impact any contracts that you have relative to like software. So if you're using the cloud for things, and you have a service agreement relative to the use of that in the cloud, in the past we would have just expensed that as a degree cost. We're gonna have a similar kind of exercise we had at the thesis, where we're gonna have to kind of figure out what the term limit is, and come out and calculate what a value is, and it's gonna create an asset and a liability, just like the thesis. I didn't say it was a good idea, okay, that's just what that accounting standard is. It doesn't affect the fund information at all. It's strictly a government-wide, we'll show you a picture of the government-wide statement here in a second. So in terms of our results, if you boil it all down, it occurred just as you historically expected it, except for that one item, which again is not a surprise because of the extended period of time when we have, the business official who knows about it was. So with that, let's go on and we'll take a look at some of the data.
Thank you, Eric. And this is my first year here joining the audit team. Super excited to join. It was a pleasure working with Mark and Erica, and they really helped us out. So, part of the slides that I'm going to be covering are the statements. These were a part of our audited financial report. So I'm just going to go through and highlight a few items throughout. The first being, this is the governmental funds balance sheet. So the balance sheet is the financial position at one point in time, which would be the district's fiscal year end, June 30th. And you'll see there's 3 columns. The first 2 are repairs and major funds, the general fund and the 2016 refunding fund. The last column is the combined non-major funds. Just note, next year there will be a new major fund for the bond proceeds. So you'll see another column there next year. And then if we look through the general fund, the assets at 6/30 were $15.5 million. And the most significant portion of that is the 11.3 receivables, which relates to the June, July, and August state aid receivable. Also included in there is a new piece, which I'll explain a little bit more in a bit, is related to the receivables for federal unavailable revenue. And then moving into the liabilities, at June 30th, total liabilities were $7.9 million. The largest piece in that accrued liability other line, $5.1 million. What that's related to is mainly the July and August teacher contracts that are owed at 6/30. And then below that, the state aid anticipation note at $600,000. And then one new line to point out this year that I referenced just a few minutes ago was the deferred inflows of resources unavailable revenue line. So that is $2.9 million in the general fund. And what that relates to is federal revenue that was not received within the 60-day window of year end. So that, like I said, is new this year, but and that is related to the fact that the governmental funds are on a modified accrual basis.
And essentially what that means is the receivables that are up in assets, that they need to be submitted and then collected within 60 days. But you can't submit the request until actually the cash goes out the door. So the July and August teacher payments have to actually have left the building, and then you have to submit the reimbursement request, and you have to get that back in within 60 days. And with all the changes that were going on in the business office, that request didn't get out until September. So it did come in, okay? So it isn't like you didn't get it. You did get it. You weren't able to recognize it as revenue in 2022. It's going to be revenue in 2023.
And moving to the governmental fund statement of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. This relates to the revenue and expenditures throughout the full fiscal year 2022. And then we're going to skip through the general fund column just because we have some more detailed slides specifically on the revenue and expenditures for the general fund that we'll cover a little bit later. But looking at the 2016 refunding fund, this activity relates to the property tax revenue and also debt service payments. And then in the non-major funds, this relates to student group activity, like fundraising and other revenue. And then also included in the non-major funds is the food service fund. So one note for this year is that with the child nutrition program and the food service, there is significant federal revenue. And because of that, the fund balance is growing. So the state requires that when the fund balance is in 3 months excess of expenditures, that there has to be a spending plan in place to spend down that fund balance.
And the district is working on that, spend that.
And then moving to the statement of net position. So essentially, the statement of net position converts the fund balance sheet that certified you're covering, it converts that to full accrual basis of accounting. So with that conversion, you're adding in long-term liabilities, debt, capital assets, and then also net pension liability and net OPEB liability. So when you look about halfway down, the most significant liability relates to the net pension liability at $67.3 million and the OPEB liability at $4.3. So this represents just Lapierre's portion of the overall Ministers plan. You can see that it has decreased significantly from last year, and that is just related to the overall plan's performance. So it definitely fluctuates, given market conditions, and we can see that fluctuate next year as well. And then we're going to focus just on the general fund balance sheet. So you see on the left, we have assets, and the right liabilities. As I covered earlier, the $15.5 million, the most significant portion you see in blue is related to the receivables of $11.3 million. Again, that is just the June, July, and August state aid, and then also that federal receivables unavailable revenue that Eric explained there. And then on the right is the liabilities, which are $7.9 million at June 30th. And you'll also see the blue portion of 5.1 was the most significant. And again, that was related to the teacher contracts for July and August that were owed at June 30th. And then moving into the general fund revenue and other financing sources. Really, this slide is a comparison of revenue from 2022 compared to 2021 on the right. So you'll see that 2022 is $52.6 million, and in 2021, 54.7. So it's important to note here that if that federal revenue that was unavailable at 6/30, if that would have been recognized, it would actually, the 2022 revenue would have exceeded 2021. And then just to break down some of the numbers within the 2022 revenue, of that $52.6 million, state revenue was $42.4 million, which is the orange. And then federal revenue was 1.7. Local revenue was 8.5 million. And I'll pass it back to Eric.
All right, thank you. The next few slides, we're going to talk a little bit more about revenue, but also pushing button. So, historically, we had graphs that dealt both with foundation allowance and with pupil count. This one was both of them together. In your history here at Lapeer, one of the things that we had talked about for a long time is that you were not at the target foundation allowance. Well, you are at the target foundation allowance. Everybody's at the target foundation allowance. So that gap, that equity gap, is gone. The only ones that are above you now, there's about 50 school districts that are called hold harmless districts. And they were defined as hold harmless districts back in 1984, and that gap will never go away. And they have to generate some additional local revenue in order to maintain that gap that they earned back in 1984. But for 98% of the school districts in the state, they're all funded at the same level that you are on a per-pupil basis. And for the year under audit, it was $8,700. You got a $450 per pupil increase in the year that you're in right now. Again, every other school district in the state got that same increase. So that playing field that we had talked about for so long about trying to be level, okay, it's not level. So now when we look at the line at the bottom where we're looking at foundation allowance, The key now is the second half of the formula. It's the amount per pupil times the number of pupils is going to generate the ultimate foundation of revenue for you. What has happened in Lapeer is kind of a, if you look at the middle 3 years, you see the numbers relatively flat. Okay, at about a little over 4,900 pupils. In 2021, the number just goes down slightly, and in 2022 it goes down a little bit more. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those two. 2021 was an unusual year because they created something called a super blend. Because of all the uncertainty that was going on during COVID, as opposed to using the normal method for calculating student enrollment, they used 2 years of student enrollment and blended those 2 years together to come up with a number. So that number is essentially artificially high. It is higher than the actual number of students that were enrolled, and it was designed to kind of prevent a sudden adverse effect. But in 2022, that super blend went away. So essentially, you're getting two things that's happening in 2022. You're getting the full effect of whatever student reductions you had in 2021, plus any student reductions that you had in 2022. The other thing I want to point out about this is that statewide, because during our COVID period, statewide, the number for 2022 decreased by about 35,000 students. The state, as kind of a net number, the state has planned for years that roughly about 10,000 student dip. Okay, so that $35,000 student that would have been in excess of the 10,000 that they would normally expect. So what we saw during the COVID period is we saw students leave the system. The question now is, are students going to come back into the system? And that's still really an open question as we move forward. And what I'm saying is what you've seen is the decline here, but the decline here is what's happening across the state. Virtually every school district has numbers that look like that in terms of its trend. And I can break anything if I need. So,
Well, let me,
no, I can figure it out. Trust me, I'm a runner. Okay.
All right, to begin the presentation this evening.
Yes. All right, here we go. So now we're going to talk about the federal money, and there's a couple of takeaways from this slide that I want to make sure that we focus on. First off, there's been a lot of federal money that's been infused into the system. Statewide, it is just a boatload of money, and that can be very, very helpful to school districts in terms of making important investments. One of the problems when you get those kind of resources is that you have to have staff and you have to have the tools in order to make those investments. And in the midst of what we call an education labor shortage, it becomes very, very difficult to find the right ways to leverage those dollars. Like you can create the best plan, but if you don't have the staff the right kind of staff to execute those plans, it becomes very difficult. And districts across the state have really struggled with how do we maximize, how do we optimize the leverage from those dollars. So with ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, the blue line represents the award, and the orangey line represents the dollars that are spent. So as you can see, you have roughly, $1 million that's left to spend from ESSER 3 or ESSER 2. But if you look at ESSER 3, you have roughly $3 million left to spend. Those dollars need to be consumed pretty much by the end of 2024. If you don't use them, you lose them. And so the school district, and you're not, this issue applies virtually across every school district in the state. Creating meaningful strategic plans to be able to effectively use those dollars today to make those meaningful educational investments, and then realizing that it's clipped. In 2024, those dollars are gone, and there's nothing to replace them. So investing these dollars now, getting out to optimizing your leverage from those dollars now, but also understanding that when they're gone, whatever you've invested in, okay, there won't be dollar resources to continue those investments. If you have to continue something, you're gonna have to reallocate resources in order to make that happen. So there's a lot of good news there. There's a lot of opportunity there, but it also requires significant tactical and strategic planning to get the most out of those dollars. On the expenditure side, we're going to look at them two different ways. This way, we're looking at them by the type of expense that they are. We historically look at it this way, the state looks at it this way, instruction and support services. In 2021, the percentage of dollars spent on instruction was about 59%, very close to your historical averages. If you look at 2022, you see that percentage goes down. Do not be concerned by that. Most of the COVID dollars that you received were by definition, used in support services activities. So if you pull a student out to help them with reading recovery, the dollars associated with that is actually a support service, even though you're helping them on the instructional side. So when we look at the support service percentages, we see that the dollars in the support service category go up pretty significantly. And that's largely federal investments in those areas. When you look at the actual instructional expenditure dollars that you get, it's almost the same from one year to the other. But the support service investment is big. Plus, a lot of those dollars related to COVID activities were allowed to be used in certain capital outlay activities. So the capital outlay dollars that you have allocated basically doubled from last year and the year ago. So there's nothing here to really create a concern. The other thing that kind of jumps out is you see the expenditures go from 52 to 55. Again, those COVID dollars, that we got those ESSER dollars that we got invested in here, you're turning around, you're making those investments to try and help, with student recovery, get them back where they need to be. On the looking at expenditures the other way would be by the type of cost that they are. So salaries and fringes continues to be the key driver. It's about 82% of the total. If you look at the chunk a little bit, you see the capital outlay number goes up pretty significantly, again, because you get some dollars to spend on capital outlay related tools in order to help ultimately the instructional side. So again, not a lot of surprises here, and once again, salaries and fringes will continue to be a key conversation in terms of the dollar construction. The last number we want to talk about is fund equity. And there's a couple things about this graph that I want to just make sure that you will grasp. The first is 19, 20, 21. You see the fund equity balance growing. If you recall back, you roll back a few more years, the conversation that we had was we had a real problem. Like we didn't have fund equity. And we were worried about the kick-ins for state oversight and all of those issues. And so we got past all of those. You've been able to build some financial stability through fund equity through 2021. The federal dollars that are coming in help to do that. 1922, it drops. And you say, well, wait a minute, we have all this other money. Well, how did it drop? Well, remember that unavailable issue that we talked about on the very first slide. Okay, because the money was unavailable, we didn't get to recognize the revenue, but we recognized the expense. So had we been able to recognize that, the fund equity number in 2022 would be almost exactly the same as the number in 2021. And again, those dollars came in, and they're going to be recognized in 2023, that's not an issue. Next year we'll have a little bit of an aberrant conversation going the other way, like, well, hey, where that money come from? And we'll have to remind ourselves. Your fund equity percentage is a little less, and let's say we put it back in there and acted like all that happened like it was supposed to, your fund equity percentage would be a little over 13%. And the reason why the percentage is a little less is because the expenditure number went from 52 million to 55. The bottom line in all of this is that the district is continuing to manage substantial resources, and the planning moving forward is going to be critical as you look to not only get the benefit from the dollars that are available, but that you plan for when the next chapter starts in 2025. We made it to the end of the sentence. How can we help you further?
The unavailable was a result of actual timing or the result?
It's strictly timing. Yes, the reimbursement has to be in within 60
We
days.
didn't put the reimbursement.
The reimbursement went in September as opposed to going in the third week of August.
So it's supposed to go into it.
Right.
Actually, there's multiple dates because there's multiple funding sources, so there's some prior to that. The ones in August, I think early August ones weren't even recognized by the state until after Labor Day also. Because I don't have discussion of that. Sure. Some districts, so.
Yeah, like under the best scenario, district, especially with the amount of federal dollars that we're talking about here compared to what's there historically, even under the best scenario, school districts would struggle to get it in on time. Because the last payroll check goes out in the middle of August. And you can't submit the reimbursement for that last payroll check until the check leaves the building. Even though they've earned the right to get paid at the end of June. Okay, that's just the way the rule is. And so you only have it's under the best of circumstances, you only have a small window to get it done.
Other questions or comments? Thank you,
Mark, great job.
thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Eric, Kristen.
Eric, this is,
Whiteman was more than accommodating for all our trials and tribulations on both sides.
we appreciate it.
It's an honor to be back. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Love the hat.
That's awesome.
We will head to our reports for this evening. We have the Finance and Operations Committee. Dr. Novak, would you please share with us the Finance and Operations Committee report?
Yeah, we met on November 21st, 2022, with myself, Summer Putnam, and Greg Hagon. Others attending was Matt Wandry, Mark Rader, Erica Henderson, Lucas Thompson, Joe Wood, Eric Kornberg, Renee Esper, and Mary Moss. The meeting was called to order at 2:30 p.m. via Zoom. The committee discussed transportation issues first. Transportation Director Linda Thompson reviewed the transportation shortages that we are currently facing, declining enrollment and loss of revenue as the district brainstorming ideas to address these issues. Some thoughts are changing school start time, increasing incentives, and surveying parents. The next thing we discussed was the Emergency Operations Plan, EOP. Since the initial board approval, much work has been in place, including the formation of an EOP planning team, which includes not only district employees, but community members as well. The team met on October 10th to review the current plan and discuss changes that may need to be made. The updated EOP plan will be placed on the December 7th meeting tonight, agenda for full board consideration. And then Eric Kornberg from the District Independent Auditor, Plant Moran, reviewed the 2021-2022 audit results with the committee. Once again, the district received an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that can be received. A full report will be presented to the board, of course, and has been presented this evening. One issue that we did not, is not reflected in these minutes is that we discussed personal use of credit cards. We discussed, I would like this report as part of the official meeting minutes, both tonight and from our committee meeting. Brad and I, as committee members, asked that the auditors investigate the personal use of district credit cards, also known as purchase cards. The auditors did find instances of personal use, but stated that reimbursement was paid in a timely manner. The reimbursement for one of these instances was made almost 3 months after the use, therefore we did not agree. We have a board policy 6423 that clearly has not been applied, and it states that credit debit purchasing cards shall be used only in connection with board approved or school related activities, and that only these types of expenses that are for the benefit of the district and serve a valid and proper public purpose shall be paid for by credit debit purchasing cards. However, under no circumstances shall credit debit purchasing cards be used for personal purchases. The auditors, as we discussed, did their job investigating our request. However, they did not have the authority to carry out board policies or discipline employees. At the meeting, Brad and I agreed to table the issue but reserve the right to bring it back for further action. The concern is that there has been a breakdown of integrity when it comes to those who have broken the policy. We need to do our job, basically. Our community deserves this, and just as we discussed tonight with the recent passage of the bond, they placed a lot of trust in us. So The policy was violated and action must be taken. We finished the meeting discussing cash flow, which is another reason why we shouldn't be allowing employees to use district credit cards for personal use. Superintendent of Finance, Mark Rader, explained that we would more than likely be increasing our borrowing this year in order to cover the increase in grant costs and the higher the budgeted loss of students. More information will be coming to the committee as it is available, and the meeting was adjourned at 2:58 p.m.
Any questions or comments at this time? Okay, thank you, Dr. Novak. We will head into the action items we have on the agenda. In our consent grouping, we have the approval of the minutes of November 2nd, 2022, second reading and adoption of board policies, bylaw 0145, discrimination and harassment, policy 3362, discrimination and harassment of staff or applicants, support staff, policy 4262, discrimination and harassment of staff and applicants, policy 5517, discrimination and harassment of students. Are there any items anybody wishes to have removed from the consent grouping? Okay, I hear none. Can I have a motion?
I move that the reading of the minutes be waived and the consent agenda items be approved as presented.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion for support. Mrs. McKenna? Aye. Mr. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Dr. Watson?
Aye.
Mr. Lipka?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Dr. Novak? Aye. Ms. Tom says aye. Motion passes. Okay, that concludes our action items for this evening. I want to go ahead and open it up for board member comments, but but you seem so super eager there.
Well, I know, obviously, you know, and Mary knows Saturday I submitted my letter of resignation from this board. December 31st will be my last day as a member of this board, as I move to the county commission. Just want to say it's been great to serve with all of you. I wish you all the best. There's no question that when we got here 4 years ago compared to today, Pierce Schools is better off. And a lot to do is with the people that were acknowledged tonight with passing the bond. And so I just wanted to say thank you to each of you. You're screwed because you still have to check my eyes. You don't get away from it. And neither do you, and you especially don't get to get rid of it. So Lisa, you've been a great friend and I appreciate you.
So with that is what I wanted to kick off tonight's board member comments is, we're sad that you're leaving us to your newly elected position, but we're excited for you on your new venture. But we want to recognize and appreciate you for all of your hard work and your dedication. This is a very difficult, fun, free, volunteer job. And we love that you did it with us.
Thank you.
But we're sad that you're leaving because you're such an asset to our board. You bring such good, useful thoughts that sometimes not all of us think about too. So we really appreciate that.
I appreciate it. It's been fun.
Do we still want to wait to do pictures when we're all done?
Sure.
Or do you, but I'll then go ahead. Before I open it to everybody, I just want to read another thing as it relates to this school board vacancy. As the board is aware, there is a current vacancy on the Board of Education with a term ending December 31st, 2024. The board will make this vacancy public, and interested persons must submit a letter expressing interest in the board position, along with qualifications for the position, including your address and phone number, to the superintendent's office no later than noon on December 22nd, 2022. To be eligible, a person must be a qualified school elector. This means that the applicant must be a registered voter in the school district. An applicant must be at least 18 years of age, a citizen of the United States, a resident of the state of Michigan for at least 30 days, and a resident of the school district. Following the review of the submitted materials, the board will schedule interviews with the selected candidates at our regularly scheduled January 4th board meeting. Deliberation, voting of candidate, and oath of office will take place at this meeting, and the appointed person will take their seat immediately. If you have any questions concerning the role of a Board of Education and the responsibilities of a board member, please contact the superintendent's office at 810-538-1604. So with that, I will then open it up for everyone else.
I did not mean to steal someone's thunder, so just for anybody, any two people that might be watching on Facebook. So.
I did want to say thank you to Lapeer County for passing the bond, and also for electing Lisa and I back for 6 years of service.
Don't sound so excited.
And we appreciate that.
No, I'm very excited, and yes, you will be missed for sure, but I will see you in other realms as they will be working alongside my husband as well.
I want to say again, thank you LCS for Kids. That was incredible. Thank you to the county, the school district for getting this voted through. Bradley, thank you for your time and effort in doing this position, this job. In terms of my chairman is the Leader Fund, we changed direction this year from just waiting for teachers and people to ask our fund for grants. We did what we call the Power Project, and we pushed $50,000 into the schools this year. So each school got an allotted amount based on pupils, full-time equivalent, that type of thing. So we pushed it out at the beginning of the year. We got submissions back, and we're starting to see that happen, and we're going to start funding that right now. In fact, the first thing happening is this Friday, Turl's going to be planting and moving some trees. So that's the project that they submitted to us that we are funding, and we can't wait to do that. But we're looking forward to maybe making this the way that we run the Leader Fund is, raise money, work with our partners, and push some money back into schools and help push it that way and maybe make it grow. So we don't want money sitting in our fund. We want to give it back to the schools and the classrooms and teachers and different things that they need and want, and go from there. So we're pretty excited about that. So that starts Friday with our first one. So happy about that.
I have nothing to share today.
I just want to say that Brad's resignation is going to leave a significant gap, as you guys have said. I really appreciate that. He has served, and I think he's just about the longest as myself serving, so pretty close anyways. His leadership and conservative values we greatly miss, and so we appreciate you, Brad, and we appreciate your acting with integrity and leading accordingly. I just want to make sure we know that. So I encourage our community members to get involved. We need people to fill this vacancy. We need people who have values and morals and care about these kids, because our kids are going to be future leaders. So we definitely need your help in that. So with that, I just want to thank Lynch again. It was a great presentation. It's great to see writing. Writing is such a deficiency. It seems like even I see it at college level, definitely. And so just to see that gap being filled is so awesome. So thank you for your presentation. And I thank the auditors for a job well done.
I'll turn it over to you, Superintendent Wonder.
Thanks, Madam President. Anita, team, awesome job. I love the student testimonials. I think that's the most amazing part of that, hearing kids be able to so confidently speak about what that new process needs to you gave them framework, and they did an awesome job. So I really appreciate you and the staff members to do this evening to present and share what you guys are doing on Lynch. I'm very proud of Mark and Erica and the team as it relates to the audit. I like Eric's term, boatload of federal money. Didn't come without significant strings and all kinds of requirements to report those monies, and Mark without Danielle's support for a significantly long time, did yeoman's work. So kudos to him and his team for, again, putting us in a great, solid position. The CAS committee is down to one. Those other part-timers, Jan, they can't hang.
It was the audit that kept me here.
So I have given probably 6 or 7 public addresses since the passage of the bond. And I have said to anyone that will sit long enough and listen that I don't think it happens without the CAS committee. I just, the amount of momentum and public interest that you guys are able to tap into, and the fact that you can be a lot more direct in your messaging than school district officials. We were really frustrated in August to the degree that we thought we had answered the biggest questions from the failure in 2019, which was simply the fact that we weren't raising taxes. But we took it on the chin. And it was really hard for this board and leadership team to get the energy to regroup and say, okay, we want to set ourselves up again for another failure. Is it worth the energy? Is it worth the effort? We met with the members of the CAS committee. We heard their plan early on. And, I used the phrase cautiously optimistic when we put it back on the ballot, but it really put my optimism over the top of meeting with you and your team, Jan, and all the ladies that were a big part of it. But the amount of money that you raised in such a short period of time, the amount of coverage that you had across the county was just remarkable. And so we take no credit, and we thank you because if we are true to our word, which is this is a community school district, the community stepped up in no short order. That was due to your efforts. So I wanted to say that to all of them, but
yeah, they don't deserve it.
That's right. I'm sure they'll go back and watch the other report and Brad, hey, I believe you were still a student here when I started.
Did you remember the first time we met?
Refresh my memory.
You weren't joking? No, you were interviewing a student from East and West. Tim Zeman asked me to be the West representative. And he gave me about a 20-minute notice, and I walked in your room covered in grass, because I just got done mowing the lawn. And you said, oh no, I'm in a country school district. We have a student walking in and getting grass clippings everywhere.
Yeah.
And I went, this guy and I are not going to get along.
That's right, that's right.
But here we are today, and we have, and I'm thankful for that.
Well, as am I, and this board is completely 100% turned over from the board that actually hired me. Brad was part of that process, and as he just mentioned. But it's a really remarkable thing to be able to go through a school district as a student and then sit on the board in the district that he went to. Especially so closely after graduating. Brad brought a really unique perspective to our board as a recent student and now as in his early adulthood and making his career and out there in the community. But you're not going to find a whole lot of people that care about our peer, not just the school district, but just the community more than that. And an entire family really who was committed. His dad is a longtime employee. I remember his brother was one of the folks presenting significant money to the Oxford group at one of our basketball games after the Oxford tragedies. You can't throw a rock without hitting a hag down that's doing something in this community. And Brad, in loyal service to the district that he loves, I know it's hard for him to leave, but is taking on a much bigger role. And we know that hopefully, I think, your growth in being a part of this board will transfer and make you that much more of a valuable commissioner. So the nice part about this is you're still going to have an influence in the community, as hopefully you stay here and grow professionally and maybe a family someday and come back here and public comment as a parent. Right? But
well, as I said in my resignation letter, I will be your biggest cheerleader, every one of you, because when you leave this board, you're still a reflection of this board.
First two people that contacted me after the bond passed were Mike Nolan and Mike Heller, right? Because they had been in the fight for so long, and that our victory was their victory.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mr. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Dr. Watson?
Aye.
Mr. Lepka?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Ms. Thomas says aye.